We're starting this mat class seated, relaxing through our arms and opening out through that mid-back, coming into extension as we sit nice and tall. Just a couple here to begin moving, and then we'll take it into side flexion. The hands come behind the head and we bend to one side and rotate down to the floor. Just a little bit side flexion and rotation, about 3 to the right, and then coming up doing 3 to the left. Really thinking about just trying to get that flexion through the sides of the ribs and rotating down towards that knee. And then one arm comes above the head, we bend over and then we twist open out towards the ceiling or the sky if you sat outside, and then take it 3 times to the other side, bending and really opening that chest out away from the floor. After 3, sitting all the way up, bringing the feet to the mat, bending those legs in front of you. You can hold the hands behind your thighs and are going a bit deeper into that spinal flexion by scooping the abs, rolling back, and then inhaling, sitting nice and tall, extending the spine. Really drawing the navel in, tilting that pelvis, and then rolling forwards, lifting up and out as we inhale. Using the hands behind the thighs to help you roll up and stacking the spine. If you like, you can take those arms above the head, circle them while you stay engaged through those abdominals and rolling all the way up. This time taking it into a bit of rotation, rolling back, take the arms to one side, lift the leg, tap the leg down and twist to the other side. So you're rotating through the shoulders, that mid-back as you're hinging through the hip, just picking the foot off the floor, keeping that knee joint fixed at about a 90-degree angle. One more each way. And then you can sit yourself up, stack the spine and come all the way up. Going deeper into the abdominals, deeper into the twist. Now take the arms across your body as you roll down to the mat. Scoop the arms and roll up on the other side. Stacking your spine, sitting tall, and then rotating, rolling down, feeling the work into that oblique. Arms come across your body and you roll all the way back up to center. One more each way, really being mindful of the legs and the pelvis staying stable as you roll down and then rotate and roll up. Last time, shoulders plug down here, roll into the side, sweep those arms across the body and then reach forward as you roll up to seated all the way to center. And then you can roll all the way back down to the mat, setting yourself up for some chest lifts. So the feet stay on the floor, the hands come behind your head, and then you start to exhale, lift and lower through just the upper back, coming forwards, thinking about hinging through the ribs. As you exhale, lift, inhale, lower. Do about 5 of these, and then we add on with the lift and the lower of one leg. So again, it's bringing the chest up, knee lifts towards the hip, and then lowering the head and the chest down to the floor. Exhale, lift the head and the chest, pick the knee up to tabletop, lower the foot to the floor, lower the head and the chest. Then you can take those legs out into a butterfly position and continue to do some chest lifts, this time with those feet together, those knees open wide, keeping stable through the pelvis, just about 5 here. Then we add on with the leg lift. So it's a chest lift, the leg lifts, the leg lowers, the head and the chest lower. Exhaling, lifting the leg through that hip joint, keeping that external rotation of the leg in the hip joint. Knee is out, foot is into the midline. Head and chest lift straight up through center. One more each way, controlling the lift and lower of your legs, keeping that neutral pelvis as you lift up through those abdominals. And then you can take those legs to a tabletop position. Arms come slightly wider on the floor, going into a bit of spine twist. Just rotating through the pelvis while keeping those shoulders anchored down to the mat. Those arms are out to stabilize the upper part of the body. As the hip lifts and the knees and the feet, the pelvis go to one side and then the other side. Using that breath, inhaling the legs over, exhale, pull the legs back to center. Inhaling over, exhaling, pulling the legs back to center. We'll do maybe one more each way. And then the lower legs down to the floor, stretch out along your mat. We'll go into some roll-ups. Exhale as you roll yourself all the way upright. Take a stretch here, inhaling as you then exhale, rounding through the lower abdominals to roll back, arms float overhead. Legs are engaged here. You can look towards your toes, look at the belly, pull it deep as you roll forwards and up. And then exhale, rolling through that pelvis, rolling down through your spine, controlling the arms going overhead. Always an option to bend the legs here to shorten the lever to help you with that roll up. When you've done one more here, you'll roll it all the way down to the floor. Picking those legs up to a tabletop position, arms overhead and going into a bit of 100 prep. Just the head and the chest lift with those arms coming down beside the body. On this one, you will go into full 100. So the chest lifts and legs extend, pumping your arms. Inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep the chest lifted. Keep those arms nice and strong. Option is always to bend your legs or take them up to the ceiling. They don't have to be out on that 45-degree angle. You can add a bit of variation by pulling the knees in and then extending the legs out as you keep the lift through the chest and the arms pumping and breathing in and out. Options to lift and lower your legs here as you stay strong through that transverse abdominal muscle, keeping that pelvis neutral as those legs go away from you and in. Pause, then lower the head and the chest, hug the knees and rest for a breath or two. Catch your breath. Take those legs out, take a stretch here, roll yourself all the way up to a seated position, reaching forwards. We're going to come up and over into some back extension. We'll come to an all fours position on our hands and our knees, and we go into a little bit of cat-cow, exhaling, rounding, and inhaling, flattening the back, lengthening through the spine. Really think drawing the abs in and up. And then keep that engagement as you extend the spine, lifting through that upper back. The gaze is looking forwards and then scoop the abs, look towards those thighs as that tailbone goes towards the floor. And then we'll come into a plank position to transition to the floor as you lower down for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way to the floor. We're going into basic back extension, just a little lift and lower through the upper back. The back of the head lifts as you inhale and exhale, lower down to the mat. Thinking about legs staying engaged, legs are on the mat. You're just lifting through those upper back muscles, keeping the chin tucked, looking at the floor to keep length through the back of the head and the neck. Then you can lower down, take those hands in front of you as we come into swim with our legs. Lifting those legs, pull the belly in and up and kick them out like you're swimming in water. Really be mindful of keeping the pelvis nice and steady here. Shoulders are plugging down away from your ears, resting the head on those hands. No movement through the upper part of the body. And then rocking those hips from side to side, just taking a breath here. Stretching out those arms, going to the full version of swim, lifting arms and legs and then swimming through imaginary water. Legs are really strong and straight. Arms are really strong and straight. Upper body and pelvis is staying stable. Pull the abs in and up as you breathe in and out, keeping that chin tucked, looking down at the floor. One more big deep breath in and out. Then you can take those hands beside your body, push yourself up and over, coming into a child's rest pose. Just roll out through the spine, maybe rock the hips from side to side. relaxing through those shoulders. Take a breath here. And then we're going to come up. When you've had a stretch, we are going to come back to our prone position for single leg kick. So we're propping ourselves up on our forearms, strong through the shoulders. We then kick the leg, bending at the knee, bringing that heel to the glute. Kick, kick and extend. Kick, kick and extend. Option to point and flex through the ankle as you keep bending the knee, thinking about a hamstring curl. Pull the heel to the glute as you keep the navel pulled in and up off your mat. Come back into your child's rest pose. Take a stretch here. Rock out those hips. Roll yourself all the way up. We're going to transition to a little bit more abdominal work. Coming to the front edge of your mat for rolling like a ball. Tuck nice and tight as you roll back and then balance up on those sitting bones. Knees stay close to the chest, heel stay close to the glutes. Aim for about 5 nice controlled, tight little balls, rolling back, rolling up. Keeping the shoulders relaxed, elbows are wide, hands just lightly placed on those shins. After 5, you can take a butterfly stretch just to release those inner thighs, open out those knees. We're going to add on to some rocker prep. So we'll stay lifted with those legs, hold the legs as you roll back and roll up to a seated position. Lifting, extending the spine as you inhale, then exhale round through the back to roll back, coming all the way back up, lifting the chest on that diagonal. The option is to go into the full version with straight legs. Keep a hold of the legs, keep them reaching, otherwise they stay in tabletop. As you roll back and lift up, lifting that chest but not losing the engagement of the lower abdominals. Finishing nice and strong and balanced, bending those legs and roll down to the floor. Take those legs up. One leg is going into a hip circle, the other leg is extended on the mat, circling the leg through the hip joint, keeping the shoulders anchored down, keeping really stable through the side of your body that's extended on the mat, reversing the circles now. They can be as small or as big as you can make them without losing stability through the pelvis. Bend that knee into the chest, give it a little hug before taking the other leg up to the ceiling, extending the leg out along the mat, going into hip circles in this side of the body. It goes across, down and around. The stabilizing leg is active. I've got my foot flexed to really squeeze that hamstring and glute, stabilizing the pelvis as that leg circles through the hip. Reverse the circles now, out, down and around. Keeping relaxed through the shoulders, keeping engaged through the ribs, the abdominals. As the leg especially goes away from the body, don't let the other hip lift off the mat. And then you can hug that knee into the chest. Give the knees a little hug before we go into hamstring pull 1. One leg's extended, one leg is up to the ceiling. We pulse and switch those legs. The legs are scissoring. They don't have to go low, but really lift the chest up to that thigh. Then the hands come behind your head for hamstring pull 2. Keep the head supported with those hands, controlling the lower and lift of the legs. Always an option to bend the legs. And then add rotation for hamstring pull 3, twisting through the upper part of the body, thinking about the shoulder crossing the midline, going towards that thigh, controlling the lower of the leg as it reaches away from you, stretching through the hamstrings, working those obliques to get the twist, then hug the knees in, lower the head and the chest. Releasing through the hips a little. Take a breath here. Extending the arms, extending the legs. Stretch here before we roll ourselves all the way up to a seated position. Exhale as you come all the way upright. And then we transition into some side kneeling work. So there's always an option here to do this side kneeling work laying down on your side on the mat. If not, you can prop yourself up on your knee, extend the arm to the floor, leg is reaching away from you, hand behind the head or on the hip as we lift and lower that top leg. Keep the leg in parallel so the hips are stacked, the shoulders are stacked, staying strong through that underneath side, and then little circles of that top leg. Again, not moving through the pelvis. You can reverse those circles, trying to keep that leg hip height. Keeping it there for the circles, we go into our side kick. It comes forwards and then it sweeps back. The foot flexes as you reach the leg forward, point the toe, press the leg back. Really strong through the abs and the glutes here as you keep the legs sweeping forwards and backwards, keeping the torso stable. Then you can sit down on the heels, reach your arms over and away to stretch out through that side of the glute and the thigh. Before we come up to transition, we'll go into a bit of thigh stretch. So kneeling upright, arms in a genie position, we hinge back and then rotate open out, taking the arm out to the side, coming upright back to genie. Really squeeze the glutes as you do this thigh stretch. Keep the abs braced here and then use the obliques to get that twist just through the torso, the thoracic spine. The hips stay facing forwards. We don't drop the hips. Keep squeezing through the glutes. Really strong core as we twist. All the way up. One more opening out. And then come all the way back to center. Lift yourself all the way up. We transition to the other side. Starting kneeling here and we lift and lower that top leg. Hand comes behind your head or on the hip, or you come to a side lying position as you do this leg work. Really think outer thigh has to lift the leg. And then keep lifted, little circles through that hip joint without trying to move the rest of our body. Circling that leg. And then you can reverse the circles, tiny circles in the other direction. Breathing through here and then side kick forwards and backwards. A little pulse, pulse, and then pulse, pulse. Abs engaged and then it's hamstrings and glutes to send that leg back in hip extension. When you've done this last time, you can lower that knee down. Sit those hips back over your heels, stretch to that side, stretch out through the body, feel that stretch through the side of the glute of that working leg. When you've taken a breath, we shall come all the way up. We're going to come into a little bit of full body work, bit of planking work. We build into this exercise. You start in a pike position. You lift the hips and then the leg lifts and lowers. We're aiming for 5 on one leg. It goes up and down. We're not kicking. We control the lift and lower of that leg, keeping the hip facing down. Nice straight spine. After 5 on one side, we add on by lowering to plank, piking the hips and then lifting the leg. You can transition that lower of the hips and the lower of the leg at the same time. Staying strong in the plank, the foot just taps the floor. We're aiming for about 5. Or you can lift and lower the leg and then hinge at the hip to pike up and down into plank. After you've done 5, keep reaching that leg behind you. Stay strong in the plank. You can sit it into a child's rest pose. Maybe roll out the wrists a little, rock the hips from side to side. Get yourself ready. We have to do it on the other side. So when you're ready, we'll come into a plank position. Then you pike the hips up. And then you start lifting and lowering the other leg. So reaching the hips up to the ceiling or the sky. Leg extends up away from you. And it only goes as high as you can without letting the lower back arch, without letting the hip rotate open. Then we add on. We lower to plank and pike the hips, lifting our leg. So it's a pike to plank with that leg extension, that hip extension, reaching the leg behind you. Nice and strong through the shoulders here. You're hinging through the shoulders, forwards and backwards. You're doing 5 pike to planks with that leg lift. After 5, you can drop it down to the knees, open those knees, sit the hips back over the heels, take a stretch here, roll out through those wrists. Catch your breath. Get yourself ready. We're going to add on a little bit more. We're going into a push-up. So the leg lifts and you lower into push-up, bending your arms and straightening. Keeping that leg reaching if you can. You can always drop it to the floor. You can drop it down to that knee. Aiming for about 5, switch the leg over and then continue bending and straightening through the arms. Aiming for narrow tricep push-ups here, reaching that leg, hover it off the floor if you can. 5 strong push-ups here. And then the foot comes to the floor, knees can separate, drop it down into your child's rest pose. One last time. Catch your breath, rock those hips from side to side. Come on all the way up. We're going to finish with some kneeling arm work. Those arms are just going to reach out and pull in, reaching in opposite directions here. Even though you're kneeling, you can do this standing as well. You're really strong through the torso and pulling the abs in. You can then reach the arms out and in. Take the hands slightly lower to get into those lower trapezius muscles. Then circle those arms, make tiny circles, little circles forwards, right from the back muscles here. Kneeling up nice and tall. After about 20, if we're counting, reverse the circles, tiny little circles going backwards without flaring that chest, without moving the torso, just moving those arms through the shoulder joint. Lifting the head and the chest here as you're circling those arms. Then they can lower, you can roll out, just releasing through the shoulders. Then the hands come in front of you. We're working through the wrists and the fingers. We make a stop sign and then we flex the wrists down, pinch those fingers together, and then start to move the hands out and the arms out to a T position while you're continuing to move through the wrists. Point the wrists and the fingers down to the floor, and then flex the wrists, keep the fingers reaching back. Take the hands a little lower now and continue to really stretch those fingers back, and then they come back to shoulder height, and then they come back in front of you. Flexing and pointing through those wrists, fingers down, fingers up. And then finishing with tiny little C's, arms out to the side. Make C shapes, really carve through this work. Strong, palms are up, palms are down. Working from our back here, about the C shape, just the size of like a melon. No bigger, no smaller. You're not just rotating the palms, really carve out. Then those arms can lower down. You can roll out through the shoulders. Maybe tilt the head from side to side, just stretching and looking up and down, just resetting that visual system, stretching and releasing through that cervical spine. And then we are done. Nice work, guys.